She saved the Mafia boss from a sinking train and discovered he was her first love. What happened next will make you cry. Subscribe and like if you're ready to fall into twists that break hearts and defy fate. The Atlantic Ocean crashed against the collapsed railway bridge with merciless fury, each wave pulling twisted metal and shattered glass deeper into its dark embrace. Hannah Mitchell stood on the rocky shore, her lifeguard certification still warm in her recently emptied locker, watching emergency vehicles illuminate the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. The commuter train had derailed 20 minutes ago. Most passengers had escaped before the front cars slid into the churning water. Most, but not all. "Ma'am, you need to step back," a young officer warned, his face pale beneath the flashing lights. "The rescue divers are on their way." Hannah's trained eyes scanned the wreckage. 20 minutes in these waters. The survival window was closing. Her hands moved to her jacket zipper before her mind caught up with the decision. "Ma'am, I said—" She was already running. The icy water stole her breath the moment she dove beneath the surface. Years of training kicked in as she swam toward the submerged car, her lungs burning with each powerful stroke. Through the murky water, she could see a figure slumped against the window, arms floating lifelessly. Her fingers found the door handle. Locked. She surfaced once for air, then dove again, this time aiming for the shattered window. Glass fragments scraped her arms as she squeezed through the opening, fighting against the water pressure and her body's screaming need for oxygen. The man was unconscious, his expensive suit billowing around him like dark wings. She grabbed his collar and pulled, her muscles straining against his weight and the water's resistance. The window seemed impossibly small on the way out. "Don't think. Just move." She kicked hard, dragging him through the opening. A piece of metal caught her shoulder, sending sharp pain through her body. But she didn't let go. The surface felt miles away. Her vision started to blur at the edges, dark spots dancing across her field of view. Not like this. Not after everything today. Her head broke the surface and she gasped desperately for air, one arm locked around the man's chest. Waves pushed them toward the rocks, then pulled them back. She kicked harder, fighting the ocean's attempts to reclaim them both. Hands reached down from the shore. Officers and paramedics pulled them both onto solid ground. Hannah collapsed onto the rocks, coughing seawater, her entire body shaking from cold and adrenaline. "Get the oxygen," someone shouted. "We need blankets here." She turned her head to look at the man she'd saved. Paramedics were already working on him, pressing rhythmically on his chest. His face was pale, lips blue, but there was something hauntingly familiar about his features. Strong jaw, dark hair plastered to his forehead, a small scar above his left eyebrow. "Come on," a paramedic urged, continuing compressions. "Come on." Water erupted from the man's mouth. He convulsed, coughing violently as his body fought to expel the ocean from his lungs. His eyes flew open, startlingly blue against his pale face. And for one impossible moment, they locked directly onto Hannah's. Recognition flickered across his expression before his eyes rolled back and he lost consciousness again. "We got a pulse," the paramedic announced. "Strong and steady. Let's get him to the ambulance." An EMT wrapped a thermal blanket around Hannah's shoulders. "That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave," she said, checking Hannah's pupils. "You could have died down there." "Someone had to try," Hannah whispered, still staring at the man being loaded onto a stretcher. "You know him?" Did she? That face, those eyes, they tugged at memories from another lifetime. Summer days at the beach when she was 8 years old. A boy with dark hair who couldn't swim being pulled under by a riptide. Her father diving in to save him while she screamed from the shore. But that was impossible. That had been 15 years ago, and she'd never seen that boy again. "Ma'am?" The EMT touched her arm gently. "Do you know him?" "No," Hannah said, though doubt crept into her voice. "I don't think so." The ambulance doors closed and the vehicle sped away, sirens wailing into the night. Hannah sat on the rocks, wrapped in her thermal blanket, watching the taillights disappear. Around her, emergency personnel continued their work, but she barely noticed. Her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate Sarah. "Just heard about the train. You okay?" Hannah typed back with numb fingers. "I'm fine. Long story." Another message appeared. Also, saw Marcus at the bar. "He's telling everyone you quit because you couldn't handle the pressure. What an asshole." Marcus, her ex-boyfriend and former boss who had fired her this morning for refusing to cover his mistakes one more time. Just this morning, she'd walked out of the beach patrol station with her career in shambles and her heart broken, convinced the day couldn't get worse. Then a train had crashed into the ocean, and she'd pulled a stranger from certain death. A stranger who looked at her with recognition in his eyes before passing out. "Miss Mitchell?" A detective approached, notepad in hand. "I need to get your statement about what happened here." Hannah forced herself to focus. Of course. As she recounted the rescue, her mind kept drifting back to those blue eyes, that moment of impossible recognition. She didn't mention it to the detective. How could she explain something she didn't understand herself? An hour later, she finally made it home to the small apartment she shared with Sarah. Her roommate took one look at her and pulled her into a fierce hug. "You're insane," Sarah said, her voice muffled against Hannah's wet hair. "Completely insane. And a hero." "I'm an unemployed hero with hypothermia," Hannah corrected, peeling off her soaked clothes. "Not exactly my best day." "The news is calling you the Angel of the Atlantic," Sarah said, pulling up her phone. "You're trending on social media. There's already footage from someone's phone showing you diving in." Hannah groaned. "Perfect. Marcus will love that." "Screw Marcus." Sarah thrust the phone closer. "Look at this. They identified the guy you saved." Hannah's heart stopped as she read the name on the screen. Jacob Moretti. The article beneath the name made her blood run cold. Alleged crime: Lord Jacob Moretti survives train derailment. Sources say the 27-year-old businessman has connections to organized crime families throughout the eastern seaboard. Police have been investigating Moretti for years, but have never secured enough evidence for charges. "Oh my God," Hannah whispered. "You saved a mobster," Sarah said, her eyes wide. "An actual mobster." "Hannah, do you know what this means?" Hannah's mind reeled. Jacob Moretti. The name meant nothing to her, but that face, she was certain now. That was the boy from the beach, the one her father had saved from drowning 15 years ago. The quiet boy who had stayed with them for 3 days while his family dealt with some emergency. The boy who had kissed her cheek before leaving and promised to find her again someday. "Hannah?" Sarah's voice pulled her back to the present. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I might have," Hannah said softly. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. "Miss Mitchell?" A smooth, professional voice came through the line. "My name is Vincent. I work for Mr. Moretti. He wanted me to call and express his gratitude for your actions tonight." Hannah's mouth went dry. "Is he okay?" "He's recovering well, thanks to you. Mr. Moretti would very much like to thank you in person. Would you be available to meet with him tomorrow?" Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. She'd read the articles. She knew what Jacob Moretti allegedly represented. Violence, crime, a world she wanted no part of. But those blue eyes haunted her, and that impossible moment of recognition. "Where?" she heard herself ask. The address Vincent had given her led to a penthouse in the most expensive part of the city. Hannah stood in the marble lobby, feeling distinctly out of place in her simple jeans and sweater, while doormen in pristine uniforms studied her with barely concealed suspicion. "Miss Mitchell?" A tall man in an impeccable suit approached. His face was angular, his eyes sharp and assessing. This had to be Vincent. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you. Please follow me." The private elevator required a key card. As they ascended, Hannah's reflection stared back at her from the polished walls. She looked pale, shadows under her eyes from a sleepless night spent researching Jacob Moretti online. The articles painted a disturbing picture. His family had controlled the eastern seaboard's underground activities for 3 generations. His father, murdered 5 years ago in a power struggle, had left the empire to his only son. Since then, Jacob Moretti had consolidated power with ruthless efficiency. Rivals who challenged him simply disappeared. Businesses that refused his protection found themselves burned to the ground. But there were never any witnesses, never any evidence. Just whispers and rumors that couldn't be proven in court. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the morning sun streaming through to illuminate a space that screamed wealth and power. Modern art hung on white walls. Leather furniture that probably cost more than Hannah's yearly salary arranged with perfect precision. "Please wait here," Vincent said, gesturing to a sitting area. "Mr. Moretti will join you shortly." Hannah perched on the edge of a sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She should leave. This was insane. She'd saved his life. That was enough. She didn't need to be here, in the home of a man who allegedly destroyed lives for a living. "You look ready to bolt." She spun around. Jacob Moretti stood in the doorway, very much alive and devastatingly handsome in casual black clothing that somehow looked more expensive than most people's formal wear. His dark hair was styled back from his face, revealing that small scar above his eyebrow. His blue eyes, those impossible blue eyes, studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I probably should," Hannah admitted, standing. "I don't know why I came." "Because you recognized me." He moved closer, each step measured and purposeful. "Just like I recognized you in the water, Hannah Mitchell. The little girl who watched her father save a drowning boy 15 years ago." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "So you do remember." "I never forgot." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see the faint circles under his eyes, the exhaustion he was trying to hide. "You wore a yellow swimsuit. You cried when they pulled me out. You held my hand in the ambulance and told me everything would be okay." "You said you'd find me again," Hannah whispered, the memory suddenly vivid. "Before your family took you away. I meant it." His voice dropped lower. "I searched for you. For years, I tried to find the girl with the kind eyes who made me feel safe. But your family had moved. Different city, different life. I thought I'd lost my chance. And then I pulled you from a train car." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Seems you make a habit of saving me." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Hannah couldn't name. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. He was a criminal, a man who built empires on fear and violence. And yet, standing here in the morning light, all she could see was the frightened boy who had gripped her hand so tightly in that ambulance. "Mr. Moretti?" "Jacob," he interrupted. "Please. You saved my life, Hannah. I think we're past formalities." "Jacob," she corrected, his name strange on her tongue. "I should go. I just wanted to make sure you were okay, and now I know you are. So, I owe you a debt." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning she didn't fully understand. Jacob's expression had shifted, becoming more serious, more dangerous somehow. "You don't owe me anything," Hannah said quickly. "I did what anyone would do." "No." He shook his head slowly. "You did what no one else dared to do. The officers stood on that shore and waited for divers. You dove into dark water to save a stranger. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "I was trained for it. It was my job." "It was your job," he agreed. "Past tense. Vincent told me you were fired yesterday morning. By your ex-boyfriend, no less, Marcus Chen." Hannah's blood ran cold. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know things." Jacob moved to the windows, his silhouette dark against the bright cityscape. Marcus Chen, nepotism hire, mediocre swimmer, spectacular liar. He blamed equipment failures on you to cover his own incompetence. Had you fired when you threatened to report him. You had me investigated. It wasn't a question. I had you protected. He turned back to face her. The moment Vincent identified you as my rescuer, I had people watching you, making sure you were safe, making sure no one connected to the families who want me dead could use you against me. The casual way he said it, families who want me dead, sent chills down Hannah's spine. This was his world. Death threats were just another Tuesday morning. I don't need protection, Hannah said, hating how her voice shook. I'm not part of your world. You became part of it the moment you pulled me from that water. Jacob crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask something darker underneath. There are people who will want to know who saved Jacob Moretti's life, who will wonder if you're someone special to me. And if they think you are, then I become a target, Hannah finished, her mouth dry. Exactly. His eyes searched her face, looking for something. I won't let that happen. I'm offering you protection, Hannah. Security. A job, if you want one. I own several legitimate businesses that could use someone with your training. Whatever you need to feel safe. And in return? His jaw tightened. In return, you let me do what I should have done 15 years ago. Let me be someone you can count on. Someone who keeps you safe. It was insane. Everything about this was insane. Accept help from a mobster? Let him insert himself into her life? The smart thing would be to walk out that door and never look back. But then she remembered those articles about people who had crossed the Moretti family. People who simply disappeared. If what Jacob said was true, if she was already connected to him in the eyes of his enemies, then walking away might be the most dangerous thing she could do. I don't want money, Hannah said slowly, or a fake job, but I do want the truth. The truth? Jacob's eyebrow quirked up. That train derailment, it wasn't an accident, was it? Silence stretched between them. Outside the windows, the city continued its morning rush, completely unaware of the conversation happening in this penthouse. Finally, Jacob spoke, his voice quiet and hard. No, it wasn't an accident. Hannah's stomach dropped. Someone tried to kill you. Someone tried to send a message. He moved back to the windows, his shoulders tight. A rival family. They've been pushing into territory that's been mine for 3 years. Yesterday was supposed to be a negotiation meeting. Instead, they arranged for the train I was taking to derail into the ocean. They wanted to make a statement about what happens when I refuse their terms. How many people died because of you? The question came out sharper than Hannah intended. Jacob turned, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. It wasn't anger or defensiveness. It was pain, raw and genuine. 4, he said quietly. 4 people died in that derailment. Because someone wanted to kill me. Because I chose a public train instead of a private car. Because I thought being around civilians would make me safer. His hands clenched at his sides. I carry every single one of their names in my head, Hannah. Every innocent person who died because of the choices I've made. The vulnerability in his voice shattered something inside her. This wasn't the cold crime lord from the news articles. This was a man haunted by consequences, drowning in a world he'd inherited and couldn't escape. You didn't ask for this life, Hannah said softly. Did you? Jacob laughed, but there was no humor in it. No one asks for this life. I was 18 when my father was murdered. 18 years old, studying business at Columbia, planning to get as far from the family as possible. Then he died, and suddenly I was responsible for hundreds of people who depended on us. Legitimate employees at our businesses, workers who had nowhere else to go. And the wolves circled, waiting to see if I'd be weak enough to let it all fall apart. So, You became what they needed you to be. I became what I had to be. He met her eyes, and the intensity there stole her breath. But standing here with you, seeing the way you look at me, it reminds me of who I wanted to be before everything changed. When I was just a scared kid holding the hand of a brave little girl who promised everything would be okay. Hannah's throat tightened. I can't fix this, Jacob. I can't save you from this world. I know. He closed the distance between them again, and this time he reached out, his fingers hovering near her cheek but not quite touching. But maybe you can remind me that there's still something worth saving, something beyond all this darkness. His phone buzzed, then again, and again. Jacob pulled it out with a frustrated sigh, his expression darkening as he read the messages. I have to go, he said, tension radiating from every line of his body. Something's happened. Vincent will make sure you get home safely, and I'll have security watching your building. Jacob, please. The word came out almost like a plea. Please let me protect you, even if you never want to see me again. Let me make sure you're safe from the mess I've dragged you into. Hannah wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But the look in his eyes, desperation mixed with something deeper, stopped the words in her throat. Okay, she whispered. Relief washed across his face. He reached out again, and this time his fingers brushed her cheek, feather-light and achingly gentle. The touch sent electricity racing through her nervous system. I'll call you, he promised. Soon. Then he was gone, disappearing through a doorway with Vincent close behind. Hannah stood alone in the vast penthouse, her cheek still tingling from his touch, her mind reeling from everything that had just happened. She'd come here for answers. Instead, she'd found something far more dangerous. The possibility that the monster everyone feared might still have traces of the boy she remembered. The boy who had looked at her like she was his whole world. And that terrified her more than anything else. 3 days passed without a word from Jacob. Hannah tried to convince herself she was relieved, but the truth was more complicated. She caught herself checking her phone constantly, jumping at every notification. The security he'd promised was subtle but present. The same black SUV parked across from her apartment building, never quite hiding the fact that someone was watching. You're doing it again, Sarah said, looking up from her laptop. The phone-checking thing. Girl, if he's ghosting you, he's an idiot. He's not ghosting me, Hannah protested. It's not like that. Sure. Sarah's grin was knowing. You just saved the life of a gorgeous, dangerous man who looked at you like you hung the moon, and there are definitely no feelings involved. He's a criminal. An allegedly hot criminal who clearly has it bad for you. Hannah threw a pillow at her roommate. You're not helping. Her phone rang, unknown number. Her heart jumped into her throat as she answered. Hannah. Jacob's voice was rough, exhausted. I'm sorry I haven't called. Things have been complicated. Are you okay? The question tumbled out before she could stop it. A pause, then quietly. Can I see you? I know it's late, but I just need to see you. She should say no. Every rational part of her brain screamed at her to refuse. But the vulnerability in his voice pulled at something deep inside her chest. Where? 20 minutes later, she stood outside a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. Not the kind of place she'd expected Jacob Moretti to frequent. No private dining rooms or security checkpoints. Just a family-owned place with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic bread wafting through the door. Jacob was already there, sitting in a corner booth. He looked different than he had at the penthouse. His shirt was rumpled, his jaw dark with stubble. When he saw her, something in his expression eased, like he'd been holding his breath and could finally exhale. You came, he said as she slid into the booth across from him. You said you needed to see me. Hannah studied his face, noting the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. What happened? The family that tried to kill me made their next move, His hands were flat on the table, fingers spread. Hannah noticed bruised knuckles on his right hand. They went after one of my businesses. A restaurant in Brooklyn, completely legitimate, owned by a man who's worked for my family for 20 years. They burned it to the ground last night. Antonio, the owner, barely made it out. Oh God. He's in the hospital with second-degree burns and smoke inhalation. Jacob's voice was carefully controlled, but Hannah could hear the fury underneath. His daughter works there. She was closing up when they set the fire. If Antonio hadn't gone back for the cash deposits, she would have died. Hannah reached across the table without thinking, her hand covering his. I'm so sorry. Jacob stared at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe she was touching him. I spent the last 3 days trying to negotiate peace, offering territory, money, anything to make them stop. They don't want peace, Hannah. They want blood. My blood. And they'll hurt anyone connected to me to get it. The implication hung in the air between them. Anyone connected to me. Including her. This is why you wanted to see me, Hannah said slowly. To warn me. To tell me to stay away. Yes. His fingers turned under hers, grasping her hand. And no. I should tell you to run as far from me as possible. Forget you ever pulled me from that water. But I can't. His blue eyes met hers, and the raw emotion there stole her breath. I've been trying for 3 days to convince myself that keeping you at a distance is the right thing to do, that I should protect you by pushing you away. And I can't stop thinking about you, about the way you looked at me in that penthouse, not with fear or calculation like everyone else, but with... He broke off, shaking his head. I don't even know what to call it. Compassion, Hannah whispered. I looked at you with compassion. No one's looked at me like that in years. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, the gesture achingly intimate. My father used to tell me that in our world, compassion is weakness. Mercy is vulnerability. You rule through fear, or you don't rule at all. And you believe that? Jacob's laugh was bitter. I believed it because I had to. Because the alternative was watching everything my father built, everything those hundreds of people depended on, crumble to dust. So I became what I needed to become. Cold. Calculating. Ruthless enough that rivals feared to move against me. But then a woman with kind eyes dove into dark water to save a stranger's life. And suddenly I'm 18 again, remembering what it felt like to want to be something different, someone better. The restaurant's owner appeared with plates of pasta, giving them a warm smile before disappearing back into the kitchen. Jacob released her hand to make room for the food, but the loss of contact felt physical. You should eat, he said. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in days. I could say the same about you. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Hannah watched him gradually relax, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. This intimate moment felt impossible, sitting across from Jacob Moretti in a tiny restaurant, sharing pasta like they were normal people on a normal date. Tell me something, Jacob said eventually. About your life. About who Hannah Mitchell is when she's not rescuing drowning mobsters. Hannah smiled despite herself. Not much to tell. I grew up in a small coastal town. My dad was a marine biologist. My mom taught elementary school. We lived in this tiny house right on the beach. Is that why you became a lifeguard? Partly. She twirled pasta around her fork. But mostly it was because of you, actually. Jacob's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Me? After my dad saved you, I had nightmares for months. Dreams about kids drowning while I watched helplessly from the shore. I started taking swimming lessons obsessively. Got my lifeguard certification the day I turned 16. I thought if I was prepared enough, trained enough, I could save anyone. And yesterday you proved you could. His voice was soft. Hannah, do you have any idea how extraordinary that was? Most people freeze in emergencies. You acted without hesitation. It's what I was trained to do. It's who you are. Jacob leaned forward, his intensity palpable. That's why I can't stay away from you. You're everything I'm not, everything I gave up trying to be. You're not giving yourself enough credit. The Jacob I've seen these past few days, the one who carries the names of innocent victims, who tried for days to negotiate peace instead of war, that's not a monster. That's a man trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation. You don't know the things I've done. Then tell me. Hannah met his gaze steadily. If you want me to see you clearly, show me everything, not just the parts you think I can handle. Jacob was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Finally he spoke, his voice low and hard. 3 years ago, a rival tried to take over one of my operations. He targeted the people who worked for me, threatened their families, so I made him disappear. Not killed. I'm not a murderer, despite what you may have read. But I made sure he could never come back, that everyone knew what happened when you went after mine. What did you do? I destroyed everything he'd built, bankrupted his businesses, made sure every connection he had knew that associating with him meant becoming my enemy. Then I put him on a boat to South America with enough money to start over somewhere far away from here. He's alive, but the man he was, that man is gone. Hannah processed this, trying to reconcile the violence of it with the man sitting across from her. You gave him a way out. I gave him what my father never gave his enemies, a choice, death or exile. But you still destroyed his life. Yes. Jacob didn't flinch from the truth. I did, because letting him continue would have meant more people hurt, more innocent employees caught in crossfire. Sometimes there are no good choices, Hannah, only less terrible ones. She wanted to argue, wanted to say there was always another way, but looking at him, at the exhaustion and resignation in his eyes, she understood. This was his world. These were the rules he'd been born into, the game he'd inherited. He hadn't chosen this life, but he'd learned to play it as well as he could while still holding on to whatever shreds of humanity remained. I shouldn't have told you that, Jacob said, misreading her silence. You're going to walk out of here and never speak to me again. I'm not walking anywhere. The words surprised her as much as they did him. I'm angry that you had to make that choice, angry at a world that put you in that position, but I'm not walking away. Why? The question was almost desperate. Hannah, why would you stay when you know what I am? Because I also know who you could be. She reached across the table again, taking his hand. You said I reminded you of who you wanted to be before everything changed. Maybe that person isn't gone. Maybe he's just been buried under years of survival and impossible choices. Jacob's fingers tightened around hers. You're going to get hurt. Being close to me, it puts a target on your back. Then we'll be careful. There is no careful in my world. There's only surviving and destroying. Then, maybe we need to find a different world. Hannah's heart pounded, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. You said you spent 18 years planning to escape this life. What if you still could? It's not that simple. Nothing about this is simple. She smiled sadly. But walking away right now, pretending we don't have this connection, that feels impossible too. Jacob stood abruptly, pulling her up with him. Before she could process what was happening, his hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. They were so close she could see flecks of darker blue in his irises, could feel the warmth of his breath against her lips. I'm going to kiss you, he whispered, and once I do, there's no going back. You'll be tied to me in the eyes of everyone watching. Every enemy I have will see you as a way to get to me. I know. You could still walk away, right now. I'd make sure you stayed protected, that no one ever connected us. You could go back to your normal life. Hannah's hand came up to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palm. I stopped having a normal life the moment I recognized you in that water. Kiss me or don't, Jacob, but don't pretend this isn't already too late. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and hungry, like he'd been drowning and she was air. His hand tangled in her hair while the other pulled her closer, eliminating any space between them. Hannah melted into him, her fingers clutching his shirt, kissing him back with equal intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Jacob rested his forehead against hers. "No going back," he murmured. "No going back," she agreed. Outside the restaurant, the black SUV waited. As they climbed into the back seat, Jacob's phone buzzed with another message. His expression darkened as he read it. "What is it?" Hannah asked. "My people found the rival family's headquarters. They're planning another attack, bigger this time." His jaw clenched. "They want a war. They're going to get one." "Jacob." He looked at her, and the man she saw in his eyes was different from the one who had kissed her moments ago. This was the crime lord. The man who ruled through fear and calculated violence. The man who had made enemies disappear. "I have to go," he said. "Vincent will take you home. Stay inside tomorrow. Don't go anywhere alone." "What are you going to do?" "What I have to do." He pressed a quick, fierce kiss to her forehead. "I'll call you when it's over." Then he was gone, disappearing into the night, leaving Hannah alone in the back of the SUV with Vincent and the certain knowledge that everything was about to change. She'd stepped fully into Jacob Moretti's world now. There was no pretending otherwise. Her phone lit up with a text from Sarah. "Where are you? You've been gone for hours." Hannah typed back, "I think I just fell in love with the wrong man." But as the SUV pulled away from the restaurant, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was exactly the right man at exactly the wrong time. And that was going to make all the difference. The call came at 3 a.m. Hannah jerked awake to her phone vibrating. Unknown number. "Hannah Mitchell?" A cold voice. "Listen carefully. Don't scream. Don't hang up. Just listen." Ice flooded her veins. "Who is this?" "Someone with a message for Jacob Moretti, and you're going to deliver it. Look out your window. The black SUV protecting you? Gone. My people took care of that 20 minutes ago. You have 2 choices. Walk outside in 5 minutes and get into the gray sedan, or my men come up. Your roommate Sarah is sleeping, isn't she? Be a shame if she got caught in crossfire. Don't touch her." Hannah was already moving, pulling on jeans. "I'm coming." "Smart girl, 5 minutes, come alone. Try to call anyone, Sarah pays the price." The line went dead. Hannah scribbled a note on Sarah's door and walked out, every instinct screaming at her to run back. The gray sedan waited. She climbed inside. They drove for 40 minutes into abandoned industrial areas. Finally, they stopped at a derelict factory. More armed men waited inside. They led her upstairs, pushed her into a chair, zip-tied her wrists to the armrests. "Comfortable?" A cultured voice came from shadows. A silver-haired man stepped into dim light. "I'm Vincent Calabresi. I represent the Calabresi family. You see, Jacob Moretti has been uncooperative, but everyone has a weakness. And his is sitting right here." Hannah's stomach twisted. "He'll come for me. I'm counting on it." Calabresi smiled coldly. "I've already sent him your location. He should be here in 30 minutes if he drives recklessly, which he will, because you're apparently worth more to him than his empire. What do you want?" "Everything. His territory, operations, connections. His family controlled the eastern seaboard for 3 generations. That ends today. Jacob can surrender everything and walk away, or die trying to save you. Either way, the Moretti Empire falls." The next 20 minutes crawled. Hannah worked at the zip ties, but they were professional grade. Then headlights cut through darkness outside. Right on schedule. Calabresi stood. "Gentlemen, positions. Remember, I want Moretti alive until he signs everything over. The men melted into shadows. A car door slammed, footsteps. Then the door crashed open. Jacob stood alone and unarmed, his eyes finding Hannah. Let her go, Calabresi. This is between us. Everything is between us, Jacob. You took what should have been mine. Now I'm taking it all back. Name your price. Territory, money, whatever you want. Just let her go. I want everything. Sign over your holdings. Disband your organization. Walk away. Do that, and she lives. Jacob's jaw clenched. Done! Jacob, no! Hannah tried to scream through the gag they'd placed. I said done. Draw up whatever papers you need. But first, let her go. Calabresi laughed. The moment she's safe, you'll fight. No, she stays until you've signed. Then maybe I'll let her walk out alive. You'll kill us both regardless. This has always been about revenge. Your brother. My father killed him 15 years ago. You wanted to make sure I suffered first. Finally, he understands. Calabresi pulled out a gun, pointing it at Hannah. You're too soft, Jacob. Too much like your mother. Niccolo Moretti would never let a woman become his weakness. Let her go, and I'll give you what you want. A fight. 1-on-1. You win. You take everything. I win. We both walk. Why would I agree when I already have everything? Because this is personal. My father murdered your brother in front of your family. You've been planning revenge ever since. But killing me unarmed while I'm surrendering? That's not the revenge you want. You want to beat me. Prove you're stronger than the Moretti heir. Calabresi's finger tightened on the trigger. Pride warred with pragmatism. Finally, he lowered the gun. Fine. Clear the floor. Just Moretti and me. No weapons, no backup. Armed men retreated to catwalks above. Calabresi removed his jacket, revealing muscular build. Jacob rolled his shoulders, ready. They circled like wolves. Calabresi struck first. Brutal punch aimed at Jacob's face. Jacob blocked and countered to the ribs. They moved with lethal grace, trained violence. Blood appeared on Jacob's lip. Calabresi stumbled from a blow to the jaw. Jacob was faster, but Calabresi had weight and reach. They crashed into machinery, sending debris flying. A punch doubled Jacob over. A kick sent Calabresi sprawling. Hannah pulled desperately at restraints, feeling zip ties cut deeper. Blood made her hands slippery. She twisted harder, ignoring pain. Jacob landed a devastating blow to Calabresi's temple. The older man went down hard. But as Jacob moved in, Calabresi grabbed a broken pipe from debris. Jacob! Hannah screamed. He turned just in time to catch Calabresi's arm. They struggled for the weapon, crashing into the wall. The pipe skittered away, useless. In that moment, Hannah felt something give. The zip tie on her left wrist snapped. She ripped off the gag and worked on the other restraint. Below, Calabresi pulled a knife from his boot, agreement forgotten. Your father taught me there's no honor in this life, only survival. The second zip tie gave way. Hannah was free. She looked around desperately and found a rusted fire extinguisher. She grabbed it, testing the weight. Calabresi lunged with the knife. Jacob barely dodged, the blade slicing his shoulder. They crashed to the ground, rolling across debris. Hannah moved to the railing. The guards were focused on the fight. She pulled the pin and aimed chemical foam at the nearest guard, blasting him in the face. He shouted, stumbling backward, his gun clattering. Hannah dove for the weapon. She'd never held a gun before, but she aimed it at the catwalk above. Stop! Her voice cut through chaos. Everyone stop or I start shooting. 14 guns swung toward her. Tell them to stand down, Calabresi, or this gets messier. On the floor, Calabresi and Jacob had frozen mid-struggle. Blood streamed from cuts on their faces. The knife hung between them. You don't have the courage to shoot. Try me. I saved Jacob's life once. I'll do whatever it takes to save it again. If you shoot anyone, my men will kill you both. Maybe, but you'll die first. Is revenge worth your life? Silence. Then sirens in the distance growing closer. What did you do? Calabrese demanded. Hannah smiled grimly. I called the police before leaving my apartment. Send a delayed message with this address. They should be here in about 2 minutes. Complete bluff. She'd been forced to turn off her phone. But Calabrese didn't know that. And the sirens were real. Calabrese's face twisted with rage. He released Jacob and stood, knife still in hand. This isn't over, Moretti. I'll find her again. You'll do nothing, because you're leaving this city tonight and never coming back. If I hear you're on the eastern seaboard, I'll finish this. No honor, no rules, just violence. You think you can threaten me? I think you're smart enough to know when you've lost. The police are coming. My people will be here any moment. You can die here today or run and live. Choose. Sirens were louder now, blocks away. Calabrese's men looked to him for orders. This isn't over! Calabrese backed toward the exit. Then he and his men disappeared into darkness. Jacob climbed stairs to Hannah, moving painfully. Blood soaked his shirt. Are you hurt? He asked, reaching for her. You're asking if I'm hurt? Jacob, you're bleeding everywhere. I've had worse. He cupped her face gently. I thought I'd lost you. When I saw you tied to that chair, you were willing to give up everything. Everything and more. Hannah, my empire, my power, my life. None of it matters if you're not in the world. Black SUVs pulled into the parking lot. Vincent emerged. Sir, we should get you to a doctor. Later. First, make sure Hannah gets home safely. And Vincent, triple her security. This isn't over. In the SUV, Hannah collapsed against Jacob's good shoulder. He held her close despite his injuries. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Every enemy I have will use you against me. Then we'll face them together. I'm not running, Jacob. You should. But I won't. She pressed her palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. We're going to figure this out, together. As the SUV carried them toward the city, sun began rising. The warehouse disappeared behind them, but Hannah knew danger wasn't over. Other enemies would emerge, but she'd freed herself. She'd stood her ground with shaking hands and bluffed her way out of death. Maybe she was stronger than either thought. Maybe she could survive in his world after all. Jacob's private doctor stitched his shoulder while Hannah cleaned cuts on her wrists. 16 stitches. Lucky the knife hadn't hit the artery. After the doctor left, Jacob found her in the bathroom. He took over bandaging her wrist with gentle hands. We should talk about what happens next. What happens next is you rest and figure out how to make sure Calabrese never comes back. Hannah. No. Don't suggest I leave for safety. I'm done running from this. From us. Being with me will always put you in danger. Being alive puts me in danger. At least with you, I'm choosing my danger. She cupped his face. You were willing to give up everything for me. Did you mean that? Every word. Then understand I'm making the same choice. I choose you, Jacob. All of you. He kissed her desperately. When they broke apart, his eyes were bright. I don't know how to keep you safe and keep you close. So we figure it out together. But first, tell me everything. Every enemy. Every alliance. Every threat. No more protecting me with ignorance. For 3 hours, Jacob laid out his world in brutal detail. The territories, the alliances, the enemies who wanted him dead. Calabrese won't be the last. Others will learn from his mistakes. They'll be more patient. How do you live like this? Constant vigilance? You get used to it, but having someone to protect? Someone who matters more than survival? That's new, terrifying. Then Jacob's phone rang. Vincent. Sir, we have a situation. Calabrese leaked information about your routines to 3 other rival families. They're mobilizing. If they coordinate, this could be the war we've been avoiding. Jacob's expression went cold. The vulnerable man transformed into the crime lord. Gather the captains. War room in 30 minutes. Get our people ready. He turned to Hannah. I have to go. Vincent will keep you here. Don't leave. Don't wrap me in cotton. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You spent 3 hours explaining your world. I need to see it. All of it. How can I choose this life if I don't understand it? He stared at her, finally nodded. Okay, but you stay silent unless I ask. These men respect strength and fear weakness. Don't give them reason to question my judgment. The war room was beneath one of Jacob's restaurants. No windows, reinforced walls, long table surrounded by leather chairs. 5 men waited, radiating violence. They stood when Jacob entered, eyes finding Hannah with surprise and suspicion. This is Hannah. She saved my life and is under my protection. Anyone with a problem can leave now. No one moved. Vincent pulled up digital maps. 3 families confirmed movement: Calabresi's, Russo's from Boston, Torres from Miami. Miami? A scarred captain leaned forward. They've never moved this far north. Calabresi offered them territory for muscle. Combined, maybe 200 soldiers. We have 150. Hannah listened as they discussed defensive positions with clinical efficiency. Corporate executives planning business strategies. We hit them first, Jacob decided. Before they coordinate, Vincent, contact the Russos. Tell them we're willing to negotiate. Give them the warehouse district they wanted. That pulls their soldiers out. Sir, that district is worth... I know. I also know fighting 2 fronts is suicide. The Russos are opportunists. Give them what they want. Remove them from the equation. And the Torres? Mercenaries. Without Calabresi's money, they'll lose interest, which leaves Calabresi's remaining people. They want revenge, blood. They won't stop until one of us is dead. So we make them stop, the scarred captain growled. No more civilian casualties. No innocent people dying because of our wars. We target their operations, their money, their power. We make them irrelevant, but we don't make them martyrs. The men shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how his father would have handled things. With respect, sir, your father would have... My father is dead because he ruled through fear and created enemies faster than he could destroy them. I've been running this 5 years. We've expanded legitimately, reduced violence 60%, secured more stable revenue. The old way was dying. We're building something that can last. Unless we get killed trying. If anyone wants out, now's the time. But if you stay, you follow my lead. We do this smart, not bloody. Silence. Then, one by one, the captains nodded. The meeting continued another hour. Hannah watched Jacob command absolute authority, making life and death decisions with terrifying calm. But when his hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently, she saw the other side. The man who carried all these lives on his shoulders. Who chose strategy over violence. Finally, captains dispersed. Jacob slumped in his chair, exhausted. Still think you can handle my world? Hannah turned his chair to face her. I think your world is terrifying and violent and morally gray. But I also think you're trying to change it. Be better than your father. And I want to help. How can you help when everything I touch turns dark? By being the light you fight toward. You said I remind you of who you wanted to be. So let me keep reminding you. Let me be the reason you choose negotiation over violence. Jacob pulled her into his lap, burying his face against her neck. I'm so tired, Hannah. Tired of fighting, always waiting for the next attack. Some days I want to walk away from all of it. And maybe that's what we plan for, not today, but someday, an exit strategy. He lifted his head. You'd wait for that? For someday? I'd wait for you, for however long it takes. Vincent messaged, Russo meeting confirmed, 2 hours. I have to go. I know, be safe, always. Jacob, Come back to me. Always. The Russo negotiation worked. Jacob returned at midnight, exhausted but intact. They'd agreed to territorial exchange in writing. Torres withdrew to Miami once payments stopped. That left only Calabresi's scattered loyalists, and without their leader, they were disorganized. It's almost over, Jacob said 3 days later at the windows with Hannah. Calabresi fled to Argentina. His people are surrendering. For the first time in months, I can breathe. So what happens now? Now we figure out our life, together. He turned her to face him. Hannah Mitchell, I love you. I've loved you since you pulled me from that water. Maybe I've been waiting my whole life to find you again. Jacob, let me finish. I can't offer normal life, can't promise safety, but I promise I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of your faith, trying to build something better. I love you too, even though you're impossible and dangerous and everything I shouldn't want. He kissed her, slow and deep. When they broke apart, determination mixed with hope in his eyes. I've been thinking about what you said, about exit strategy. It won't be quick or easy. I have responsibilities, people depending on me. But I've started working with Vincent on transition. Legitimate businesses to absorb workers. Other families willing to take territory peacefully. Could take years, but it's possible. Years I'll be right beside you. 6 months passed in strange blur of danger and domesticity. Hannah moved into the penthouse. Found work at beach rescue training. Jacob slowly dismantled criminal aspects of his empire, transferring operations to legitimate ventures or negotiating peaceful handovers. It wasn't clean or simple. There were setbacks, violence, enemies who refused to let him walk away. But piece by piece, Jacob Moretti the crime lord transformed into Jacob Moretti the businessman. Then came the call that changed everything. Moretti, Antonio Russo, the man he'd negotiated with months ago. We need to talk, in person, tomorrow. Come alone. What's this about? Your exit strategy. Word's gotten out you're trying to go legitimate. The other families aren't happy. That's my decision. Is it? Because there are rules, Jacob. You can't just walk away. No one walks away alive. The call ended. Jacob sat motionless. What does that mean? Hannah asked. It means I have to make a choice. The family's called a summit. All major players on the eastern seaboard. They want me to explain my intentions. If they don't accept my reasoning, they'll kill me. Or worse, go to war with everyone who helped me. Destroy everything as warning to anyone else who tries to leave. So what do? I go to the summit and make them understand I've earned the right to walk away. Jacob insisted Hannah stay behind, protected by security. She agreed reluctantly, but as hours passed with no word, anxiety grew. Finally, Vincent called. Miss Mitchell, the summit isn't going well. They're refusing to let him leave. They want him to choose, stay and rule, or die and let the empire be divided. That's not a choice. In their world, it's the only choice. But Mr. Moretti has a plan. I thought you should know in case things don't go as hoped. The line went dead. Hannah stood frozen. She couldn't just sit here. But what could she do? Then she remembered something. His father's death. The power struggle that followed. How families accepted Jacob's leadership because he'd proven himself worthy. Maybe that was the answer. Not violence, but proof that Jacob had transformed into something better, something worth preserving. She grabbed her phone and started calling. Sarah, then people she'd met through Jacob's businesses, employees who'd benefited from reforms, families who'd found stability, workers who'd seen him choose mercy over violence. Within 3 hours, she had 50 people willing to speak on his behalf. Vincent, I need you to get me into that summit. Miss Mitchell, that's impossible. Too dangerous. Jacob is in there fighting for his right to leave, to build something better. But he's fighting alone. Let me bring proof his transformation is real, that he's worth more alive than dead. Silence. I'll get you in. But Hannah, if this goes wrong, we're all dead. Then let's make sure it doesn't. The opera house looked like Gothic nightmare. Limousines lined streets, guards at every entrance. Vincent led Hannah through a side door past heavy security. The main theater filled with men in expensive suits, heads of every major family. Jacob stood on stage, alone and defiant, facing down an army. The decision stands, an older man was saying. No one leaves this life. Not you, not anyone. It's tradition. Law. Break it. You threaten the entire structure. Then your structure is weak. If it can't adapt, can't evolve, it will crumble regardless of what I do. Brave words from a man surrounded by enemies. Not enemies, competitors, allies. Men who understand our world is changing whether we like it. The old ways are dying. We can die with them, or evolve. Hannah slipped into the theater, her group of 50 following. The family's eyes turned toward her, suspicious and hostile. She walked down the center aisle with her head high, stopping at the stage. Hannah! Jacob's voice was sharp with alarm. What are you doing? Testifying. She turned to face assembled families. You want proof Jacob Moretti earned the right to walk away? Here it is. She gestured to people behind her, restaurant workers, dock employees, nightclub staff, all from legitimate businesses, all willing to speak. One by one they testified about reduced violence in neighborhoods, about job stability and fair wages, about a man who chose negotiation over bloodshed, who protected innocence even when it cost him power. He's not the same man his father was, an elderly woman said. My son worked for Niccolo Moretti, died in one of his wars. But Jacob, he protected my grandson, gave him honest work. That's worth more than any empire. Testimonies continued for an hour. Hannah watched families' expressions shift from hostility to uncertainty, to something almost like respect. Finally, the older man stood. This is unprecedented, unconventional. So is Jacob Moretti, another head added. He's built something none of us achieved. Loyalty based on something other than fear. The question remains, if we let him walk away, what stops every other young boss from trying? Maybe nothing, Jacob said quietly. Maybe that's not a problem. Maybe it's evolution. Silence filled the opera house. Then, impossibly, someone started clapping. Then another. Soon, most families were applauding, not for his criminal empire, but for his transformation. The vote. All in favor of allowing Jacob Moretti to exit with honor? Hands rose throughout the theater. Not all. Some families still voted against, clinging to tradition. But enough. More than enough. The decision is made. Jacob Moretti, you are released from obligations. Your territory will be absorbed peacefully. Your people protected. You have earned what few ever do, the right to walk away alive. Jacob's legs nearly gave out. Vincent moved to steady him, but Hannah reached him first, climbing onto stage and pulling him into her arms. It's over. You're free. We're free, he corrected, holding her tightly. That night at the penthouse, they stood at windows watching city lights shimmer below. Tomorrow, transition would begin, a process taking months, maybe years. But tonight, they could simply be. I can't believe you did that. Marched into a room full of criminals with 50 character witnesses. I told you I was all in. You could have gotten killed. So could you, every day for 5 years. Hannah turned in his arms. So what now? Who is Jacob Moretti when he's not a crime lord? I have no idea. He smiled, free and genuine. I guess we find out together. 3 months later, they stood on a beach at sunset. Somewhere new, somewhere theirs. Small ceremony with closest friends. Sarah as maid of honor. Vincent as best man. No guards, no enemies, no shadows. Just a man and woman who'd saved each other in more ways than one. Hannah Moretti, Jacob said, testing the name. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Best decision I ever made. He kissed her softly, ocean breeze whipping around them. Thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing something worth saving. Thank you for letting me save you. Again. They walked along the shoreline as sun dipped below horizon, painting sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Behind them, their past, dark and violent and impossible. Before them, their future, uncertain but theirs to shape. Sometimes the most dangerous thing was loving someone completely. Sometimes the bravest choice was walking away from power in favor of peace. And sometimes the monster turned out to be a man waiting for someone to see him clearly. Hannah Mitchell had dove into dark water to save a stranger. She'd ended up saving them both. The boy she'd known 15 years ago was still there. She'd just had to fight through darkness to find him. And now, finally, they could both breathe free.